And Riva, I just want to come to you as well and looking at how we've had a very interesting journey since 2024, pushing for this particular UN tax convention and thinking critically about how it's going to work for the global south and the different countries. What are your overall perspectives about it, and how would you want people to understand this process?
Sure. Thanks, Lorraine. Just to build on what Kwesi said, that this unfairness in terms of global finances and the financial architecture is not just a tax question. It's a debt question. It's a trade question. It's in many other forms of multilateralism. And the fight has been ongoing. We can trace it from slavery to colonialism to neocolonialism. We are in the process of beyond decolonization, going into decoloniality, and which is basically dismantling the structures that endure from colonialism. So just the way Kwesi said that a lot of these instruments and frameworks were set up during colonialism, they still persist. And so the question that this UN tax convention is trying to address is, how do we get our fair share of taxes, and how do we tax multinationals fairly, like relative to their economic activities. And so these are big questions, and the task is, how do we put that in convention language? There are a lot of technical means for doing that. Wealthy people, for example, don't hold wealth as individuals. They hold it as companies, behind companies, behind companies. So how do you unveil, the corporate veil? How do you reveal who is really profiting from a company that is set up in an offshore jurisdiction, and a low tax secrecy jurisdiction? How do we reveal all these, and how do we set up all the mechanisms that are going to rebalance and reallocate how countries tax people, individuals and corporates, on as fair a basis as possible? So that's what the negotiations about. And what's difficult about them is, it's not like many conventions that are at the UN, that begin with principles and have very clear articles that people understand. This is not your average human rights convention. It is a tax convention that is intended to realize human rights, that is intended to realize the sustainable goals. So I find that the negotiations have been challenging in that sense, because not only are you translating or trying to operationalize principles into a convention, but you're also dealing with power symmetries within negotiations. So, of course, those who have, high-income countries, OECD in particular, who have had the policies, who have been leading the policies around tax governance, want to maintain a status quo. And so a lot of the discussions are around maintaining what is. There's a lot of references to existing mechanisms, even if that was already agreed that this would be discussed at some point. Instead of trying to further the language and put flesh into what articles could have to operationalize the reallocation of taxing rights, we just heard a lot of the same. Let's keep what is. How does this work with what is? So yeah, that's the challenge that we're facing.
Okay, that's very interesting to hear.